Higgins. I'm the Member Education and Events Director with the New York State Restaurant Association. We appreciate you spending these next 45 minutes or so with us. I am joined today by NYSERDA's partner, Rob Grimes. He is the CEO of the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. And in case you didn't know, if you are a member of NYSERDA, you have the opportunity to utilize your membership with the IFBTA. And in case you are unaware of the IFBTA, they are a nonprofit trade association that promotes the use of tech within global food and beverage and hospitality industries with focus on education, standards, research, and networking. So we are pleased that you're here with us today, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
A couple of housekeeping tips before we get started. The webinar, as always, is being recorded. It'll be available to NYSERDA members to view after the fact by logging into our website. If you have any questions about that, email info@nyserda.org. And we'll save questions about the presentation until the end. You can ask those by typing in your question to the Q&A box. I'll monitor them and we'll go over those at the end with Rob. So Rob, I'll turn it right over to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Well, thank you, Sarah. And we are really pleased at the IFBTA to be able to kick off this alliance with the New York State Restaurant Association. I would point out that this was actually our first alliance. We announced it, I believe it was March 9th at the New York show last year. And you can imagine what happened after March 9th, as you all are very much aware. And so we are really pleased to be able to kick this off. Let me go ahead and take us to a menu of what we're going to discuss today. We're going to start out by introducing officially the benefits between the alliance of NYSERDA and the IFBTA. But then we want to go focus on really giving you some value and information, just sort of show what you need to know going forward, what the key focus areas are, how the rest of 2021 and 2022 are going to impact and change with technology, and then some just real bottom line thinking of what you ought to be taking home with you to ensure tech success. And then we will leave it open, as Sarah said, for some Q&A at the end, which you can submit those questions. But we'll obviously be around after. And since this is recorded, we'll be able to post this afterwards, and you'll be able to share this either through the IFBTA's website or NYSERDA's website as well. So with that, why don't we go ahead and do the introduction itself? So as Sarah pointed out, the IFBTA, International Food and Beverage Technology Association, is a not-for-profit industry trade association that focuses on the promotion, networking, and education. And really, we do have our blinders on in some ways that is exactly our mission, that is our focus. But as we do it, our membership is actually open to all who are interested in food and beverage technology, which is pretty broadly defined. It's open to all operators. It's also open to suppliers, but everybody has an equal seat at the table in the discussion with us because we found that it really takes both parties to be able to share information in a non-sales manner with each other in order to move ahead and understand the impact and the future and how to implement and utilize food and beverage technology today. We have a global reach. We have regional, local, and actually virtual chapters as well. The virtual chapters were around before COVID and were really put in place because it's not always possible for somebody to attend a local chapter meeting. But certainly if we have a chapter, we can do that. And I would point out in a minute when we talk about our partnership, actually how we bring that to the local level across New York State as well. We also participate in several industry events, things like the National Restaurant Show, which many of you may go to. We do FS Tech and MERTech. We do the National Retail Federation Show, which happens to be in New York. These are technology specific shows or the major industry events. And so if you find yourself at the NRA show, next May, there will be a place for you as a member of NYSERDA and a co-member of the IFBTA should you decide to opt in to that. We also have a certification program. I would call this really a level 101 course. This is your opportunity to learn on an impartial basis each of the main functional areas of food and beverage technology. There are about 20 areas in it. It is a video course. There's 3 to 4 videos per module, but those modules run from point of sale to back office to drive-through to some of the interesting areas for IP people like data security and networking and things like that. But this is a good way to at least understand what technology is about and what you should know, instead of getting perhaps your advice or your knowledge simply through the advice of others, or perhaps through local dealers of technology. So there is no sales in it. There are no advertising in it. It's not sponsored. It is a true program. And it's also meant to fit very well with other certification programs that you can get through the association, both nationally and locally. And then the last thing is, we really focus as the IFBTA on partnerships and support. NYSRA was our first state restaurant association partnership, but we also partner, as we said earlier, with major events and things, and other trade associations like CHART, the Council on Hotel Restaurant Trainers, the NRF, because it is an industry that has many different facets. And so we very much focus on those industry partnerships and support to provide technology education and networking and promotion to their members, just like we're going to do with NYSRA. But very specifically, let's talk about the included benefits. After we went ahead and we announced the partnership, you should have received by email a postcard that looks like this one that's here. And by the way, I should point out that there are a number of slides in this presentation that have the QR code on it. So feel free to take out your phone and scan it if you would like, but listen to the presentation, of course. But feel free to go ahead and scan it, and it will take you to the membership page where you can go ahead and opt in. But very specifically, what is in this for you as a NYSRA member? Well, first of all, there's local and regional chapter presentations. Whether the IFBTA has a chapter or not in a city near you, it really doesn't matter, because we are here to support the individual chapters across the state of New York. So whomever will have us, we would hope that at least on an annual basis, we would be able to provide a tech briefing to let people know in person what is coming ahead for the next year. And so we're prepared to support all local chapters. We obviously will participate in association events, both in person and virtual. We do participate at the New York show, the International Foodservice Show and Expo in New York. And of course, in that, actually for the first time this March, there's going to be a tech pavilion, and we will provide that programming and education in that tech pavilion. We provide support to ProStart in support of providing technology education, in addition to the functional skills that they offer. And we also offer franchisee resources. We do understand that there are many franchisees, both on the restaurant and the total hospitality side, that operate within the state of New York. Sometimes there's not information available to them. And we are able, through the NYSRA partnership, to be able to provide those franchisees with support locally and regionally, including access to other information resources that are specifically for the state of New York through this partnership. But as Sarah did mention, included in your partnership and your membership with NYSRA is the ability to opt in for a membership within the IFBTA. And that membership can either be used by the person who's the designated member representative to NYSRA, or you can give it to somebody else within your organization who can go ahead and opt in and become a member of the NRA, because, I'm sorry, the NRA, become a member of the IFBTA. And that's very important, because individuals are our members, not just the company. So if you have somebody focused in your organization on IT, or maybe it's the finance person or your ops person, or it may be yourself, you decide who best can go ahead and use this membership. And that is included in your membership with NYSRA, the ability to do that. If you're an allied member of NYSRA, you also can opt in and register your company as well, because we want to support those technology companies and those interested in technology that have invested in NYSRA as an allied member. And we want to support that as well and give you membership included in your membership with NYSRA as well. We do have chapters. We did announce last March the formation of the New York City chapter. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we weren't able to do that, but we will be doing that now in alignment with the NRF show, but really kicking it off at the New York show in March. And then we You will have the ability to take the certification program included in your membership. We publish 10 white papers a year. We do the celebration of technology events, as I've mentioned already. There are technology information and resources available to you, including, by the way, connecting you with other IFBTA members around the world, because we have international chapters that may be able to answer your question through a discussion board or a direct connect if there's somebody you want to meet. And then the last thing is, through the IFBTA, you have our expanded reach and touch points for information and resources that come through the other associations and media that we are connected with, that we are bringing to you through the NYSRA membership. So with that, and you may have questions, of course, but with that, I'm going to go ahead and just give you an overview, a high-level overview of what you ought to be concerned about right now in technology. So there are really 4 key focus areas in technology enablement. Now, there are 2 things I should have told you at the start. I was born in New York, which is a good thing, and I lived in New York many years. So I, certainly feel back home here on this call. But secondly, I'm a restaurant manager. I'm a restaurant manager who happens to be in technology, and my career went through Bob's Big Boy, Roy Rogers, Marriott Hotels. But really, I'm a restaurant manager at heart. So everything that you're going to hear right now really comes from an operational focus, which is where we are. So as we think of technology, I'm going to tell you that people should not put technology in for technology's sake. Technology enables all areas of an operation, but it is not the end all. And we can't afford to invest in those things. So I just want you to know that going into this. So the 4 key areas are engagement, convenience, digital, and safety. Safety, of course, has become to the forefront because of COVID, and we'll come back to that one. But people want to know not only about safe food, but safe handling and where things come from, but also things like contactless payments and things like that, and engagement for both employees. But engagement is how we connect. And the connection points for us have never been as great as they are now, because whether you had online ordering and delivery before, you do now. And so that has engaged us in a new way with our customers, both inside and outside of the operation. But at the end of the day, people are looking for convenience, and they're going to continue to look for convenience, whether it's delivery or, whether it's how they order, how they pay, but it is all a digital strategy. And so these are sort of the 4 key enablement areas. So if we take a look at operations itself, so there's a number of places where technology is actually impacting operations. The first one is in the menu. Now, that may seem like an obvious answer to any operator who has been using, for instance, back office technology to figure out what sells, what doesn't sell, the profitability and things. But if you think about the last 24 months and how we were able to use technology on the menu, we were making choices in the menu to scale back, to make things that were easily delivered and maintain quality, maintain safety. And actually, that enabled us to make some choices, which may be choices going forward. But the menu has also changed with technology as a background, with a backbone, because we're able not only to see what sells, what doesn't sell, and its menu mix, but also we're able to now deliver food, so to speak, in many different manners, whether it's in packages that people pick up at pickup points, whether it is delivery, whether it's in-house, and also we're starting to see scaled back operations. Clearly on the staffing side, we had to stay connected. The very fact that we have had less meetings and we've done Zoom for our own staff, and not just for meetings like this, are a big. They've been a challenge, but they're also a big opportunity, because we will never communicate as well or communicate the same way that we did previously as we are now. But also we have to stay connected with our staff. As staff started to work remotely, if they were from an office, or as we started to use staff differently in different positions, or perhaps lose some of the staff but want to stay in touch and keep them back, bring them back, we had to use technology to enable how we communicated, how we protected our staff, and the tools that they used to do their jobs efficiently. Ordering, there's not a lot to say about this. Ordering went digital, and it really doesn't matter whether it was online through a mobile app, whether it was through the desktop, whether it was a kiosk which were sort of going away, and COVID brought them back because of the grocery store industry, actually, for contactless scanning and things like that. And people were doing tableside ordering and things like that as well. But also we're starting to see a lot of AI and voice ordering going through, which leads us to the drive-through. And we can see big companies like McDonald's, and we're going to come back to that because I realize we're not all big companies here, but we can see big companies like McDonald's that are using artificial intelligence to predict what you want in the drive-through and offer you things faster and more efficiently and more accurately than before. And I actually see television commercials for this now that are run by some of the data providers, but they're showcasing how food service operators are using it. And so as the big providers go, it actually filters down the technology we can use at the independent, small to medium business and the local and regional. And then delivery, of course. Whether it's self-delivery, which was a debate prior to COVID, the one thing I do know is that delivery is not going to go away. The one thing I believe we will see in the future on that, just to sort of jump ahead for a moment, will be autonomous vehicle delivery, which was being tested before COVID in certain cities by people like Uber and Lyft. That will be the opportunity to drive down cost, but delivery will not go away, and operators will make a decision whether to join up with a major delivery group, do it themselves, or perhaps form some local and regional partnerships. So what about the guest? Well, the guest is using their technology for sure. As a matter of fact, they're using their own technology. So if we skip down the BYOD, bring your own device, that probably is the future of technology going forward as we look to how we connect with guests. However, sustainability was something that guests were concerned about before. Sustainability is something that they're concerned about now, especially as the demographic of guests has changed. And technology enables us to know from farm to fork, including allowing us to use local farms and local sourcers in it, but really to know how things are prepared, the food safety, and then the contactless, whether it is a QR code on a table, whether it is a device on a table, like they would call them tableside kiosk, or using the customer's own device for ordering contactless, self-service for sure. And by the way, those particular items of contactless and self-service actually bring us to the concept of bring your own device, which by the way is not only the guest, may actually be the servers and your staff as well. The prediction here is that in fact our hardware costs may go down because people will in fact use their own device. Instead of using ones that we have to buy for them. But we'll come back to that. Virtual reality, interesting concept that was around for a while, but many guests and many companies held parties and celebrations with their staff. And the way they did that was create a virtual environment in order to hold it, deliver food to them. And I think we're going to start to see more virtual environments coming about, possibly in meeting rooms in our own operations, possibly in the person's home. But virtual reality, as it relates to the guest, also allowed them to start to visualize, including smell, by the way, and see without goggles on, food that they could see from their PC to sort of get that experience from their phone or PC, a 3D experience when they order, which is also part of the experience we want them to have, to know how things are prepared, to know what they're going to look like, what they're going to smell like, probably not taste. And yes, they're using a 3D printer or something to print the food, but that's not why we're here today. And then pickup and delivery for sure. They want options in pickup and delivery, but the other side of it is the food safety, is the timing, the staff safety, and obviously food quality. So that brings us to infrastructure. Now, I am going to tell you right now that I am very much aware that this is probably not the most exciting topic on this screen, but it is something that you need to be aware of. With all of this data that we have available to us now, because all of a sudden we know who our customers are. Even when we were using reservation systems like OpenTable and some of the credit card systems before, we didn't necessarily know who exactly the customer is. But we do now because they're directly connected with us. But that also goes with the responsibility of securing the data when they do transactions. And we need to be aware of it. I'm not saying that every operator needs to every operator needs to be, the end all in this, but those technologies and things you use, you need to use this and keep this in the back of your mind. And that includes somebody who's a franchisor or a franchisee, even if you only have 3 or 4 units that you're franchising out, because it's your reputation and name. Geofencing, very simply put, any of you have a cell phone that you have opted in and you go into a store and it says, welcome to the store, that's geofencing. It knows your presence and it knows where you are, but it's something you want to opt into. The nice thing about geofencing for us is that going forward, that is going to allow us to prepare foods for pickup, but really deliver them when the person is close by, or know when somebody is nearby a restaurant and get them connected, recognize them, and allow us to give loyalty or to give them special service that we couldn't do before because we didn't know who the customer was and we didn't have the technology to connect. But now they're already connected to us because they're placing orders with us, even inside of the operation. 5G, you've probably heard a lot about that. The only reason it's even on this screen is because it allows for faster and secure communications. It's a cellular phone network. And so we can take advantage of that to lower cost, because it isn't always about having the high-speed internet access, but you need to have the backup. Internet of Things, IoT, means that all of the devices we're using, whether they are fryers, whether they are drink dispensers, everything is connected to energy management. And so that allows us to lower maintenance costs and in order to be able to predict things before they break, but also to have different things working with each other to give a better experience across the board. Blockchain really is the connection that shows each way. And blockchain a lot of times was used as a term also in payments. So if you're hearing about Bitcoin and those kinds of payments that are out there, it uses blockchain to collect data and pass it on. Well, food safety is also a blockchain thing. And this is what, it's not that you're ever going to purchase blockchain, but you need to know the term because it may be used by your providers so that they are able to track every point from farm to the fork to delivery to the house for food safety and information for your guests. That's because they're able to connect with providers each step of the way, consolidate that information, and put the pieces together in a chain in order to do anything from payments to food, et cetera. And then artificial intelligence, as I pointed out before, as soon as you get too much data, we don't have the time, we got to manage. We don't have the time to use all the data we have. So artificial intelligence tools, like, as I pointed out, the drive-through, or ones that help us to make business decisions on labor, on menu, that is coming around. It's embedded. I am not telling you to be an expert in all these areas. I'm just saying know these terms and understand these terms so that when they come up, you'll understand how they're used. And again, the IFTA certification program actually covers most of these things. So let's just flip for a second. I just want to make sure we're focused on what is changing between now and the end of the year and next year. The reason why is I know you're budgeting or you're thinking about what you need to do, or now as business picks up, you may need to catch up in some areas. So let's just focus on just what exactly did change and its impact on our operations. So there were some challenges and there were opportunities. I do not view everything that happened to us as a complete challenge because they created opportunities going forward. Yes, our industry was challenged. Yes, our sales, our staff, our menus, everything about what happened in the last 24 months has been an extreme challenge to us. But sometimes out of challenges also come opportunities, and technology that we put in place may help us. So here are the challenges. There are a lot of regulations out there that we may not have had to think about before. Those regulations, some are already out there, some will come, but also as COVID continues until it's over, there are regulations having to do with seating, dine in, dine out, how you deliver, vaccinated, not vaccinated, all the different regulations that come about. But there are also the data security regulations that are going to come to the forefront because we're now doing things. Traditional concepts were obviously, impacted. So dine-in was clearly impacted, but anybody who had any events couldn't do events. And anybody who was doing catering really couldn't do catering because of the groups and the use of the rooms. How we provided service has been a challenge. And then getting connected with guests was a challenge if you weren't connected before. If all of a sudden you had to use new tools that were not available on site, that's a connectivity issue. And then the other challenge is when you throw things in overnight, you got to think about how they work together, something called integration. I can guarantee you that people met the call of having to do something overnight to provide great service to their guests in a very challenging situation. However, they may not have thought about how everything had to work together, and that either required manual or we may be living with that now. So what are the opportunities then? Well, as I said earlier, the more data we have, the more guest connections we have. We now get the opportunity to actually know and connect with our guests on a firsthand basis. And they will opt in for it because they want the options of convenience and connection to us. We were never able to do that before. It allows us to do new concepts. I've seen many operators who added either new items, like for instance, a farm stand. I've seen a number of people do it, some big operators too, by the way, groceries, but it also provided the ability to do some alliances, which we'll cover in a minute. But there were new concepts. Ghost kitchens and virtual operations. These are three opportunity areas that you can take advantage of. These terms were around and we were headed this way prior to the pandemic, but I can't tell you that we were embracing it as much as we could. A ghost kitchen is a kitchen that exists primarily for delivery in a local place, in a centralized place, and there are providers who can do this for you. If you want to have a ghost kitchen provide food, it allows you to expand your delivery to more local. But usually they're operated by somebody else, although larger people will provide it as well. Dark kitchens are the use of your kitchen in order to be able to sell products from other people. So you can either sell your product through other people's kitchens, so downtime in a kitchen, but you need technology to be able to do this, or you can sell products in your kitchen for other providers. So there are some people that are virtual concepts only, and they allow you to, if you're selling burgers, now you can sell pizza under a pizza brand, but you're using your kitchen for it. And it's also a way for you to expand your operation. If you can't handle all of the delivery, you might use somebody else's either ghost kitchen or a dark kitchen. And then cloud kitchens are one that operate totally in the cloud, but there are certain delivery points that are set up. This is a very hot area, something you should know about. But in order to make it work for you, whether you are providing the service and the kitchen or whether you are actually using somebody else's to do it or creating your own virtual brand, which a single unit operator can do, you need technology. I did point out that the data availability has never been greater than it is today, because once that data is in the cloud, so to speak, it can interact with other data. You just have too much data. So you have to know how to use it. But in selecting systems, you need to keep that in mind. But one of the interesting things that has come about are what I would call ecosystem alliances. These are other people in other industries that work with the food service industry and the restaurant industry, like retail, lodging, travel, and healthcare. And we've seen many partnerships of restaurants providing meals to hospitals that may not have had it before. And we saw that in New York City, for instance, and I'm sure across New York State. We've seen lodging who could not have conferences coming in, having big open meeting space and saying, hey, wait a minute, the restaurant down the street who only could do 25% and they have space for 500 people or 400 people. Well, a conference room or a meeting room, a banquet room that can hold 1,000 at 25% could partner locally. And that was an opportunity, and also delivery there. The travel industry alliances between the travel networks. So when somebody is booking their travel from the airline, ordering foods, making reservations, that's where blockchain comes in order to connect the different pieces, both for food safety, but say, hey, you're traveling, and connect everybody together for a total travel experience. And I already mentioned healthcare. So the last thing I'd like to leave you with is some take-home pieces. I call it bottom line thinking. If you were to just say, to anybody in the IFTA or say, hey, Rob, there's a lot of technology out there. Is there some simple way or something I should think about? Because, gee, it sounds like it's pretty complicated. And sometimes it is, but maybe we should simplify it a little bit. And so these would be the keys to thinking that I think may help you. So first of all, you need to think holistically instead of a silo. COVID forced us to say, hey, I need delivery and I need online ordering. I got to put it in overnight. And we made those selections, right thing to do in an emergency situation, but we may not have thought of how that had to fit with everything else. So we may have thrown something in that somebody else used, but now we have to connect it with the point of sale, or we have to connect it with 3 or 4 delivery companies. And so we're sort of stuck. So I always tell people, even in an emergency, even if it's on a blank piece of paper, on the paper, visually just draw out each of the systems that you have, so at least you can see them and how they have to work with each other, because no one thing stands alone. And by the way, that goes to your website, that goes to whatever it is you're doing. You just need to put it on a piece of paper so you have an inventory of everything you use holistically while you focus on buying something in a silo. And the reason why I would tell you that is because if you have 20, if you needed online ordering and there were 50 of them available, why would you choose one that doesn't already integrate and work with your point of sale? And that's an example. So instead of 50, maybe you're only looking at 5. Okay. The other thing I tell people is always to think about going from back to front. I know a lot of people feel the point of sale or the back office is the center of the universe. It isn't. Actually, where all the data has to go. If you're a franchisee, it's got to go to the franchisor. If you run multiple operations under different concepts, it's probably going to some back office accounting. So if you start with the back end and work your way front, actually the last thing, if you were choosing totally new systems or opening up a new company, would be what's on the front counter. Because if you start at the back and every step of the way, pick what has to work with each other, by the time you get to the front, the choices you have are ones that should be able to work all the way up the board, because what you don't want to do is be in the integration business. I always tell people to be organized. Even if it's just a blank piece of paper, writing down the 10 to 20 main things you absolutely need in a system before you go out and start looking, before you do the Google search, before you go to the trade show, before you call your friends, because your operation is going to be different than somebody else's. And so you need an organized process, not just call people up and tell them to come in. And that means clearly defining your requirements, both in functionality as well as the services that you need around that. Gain buy-in, and if you're a franchisee or you're a franchisor, from your operations staff. The last thing you really want to do is the owner operator, if they haven't worked in the unit in 20 years, making the decision. If I'm choosing a point of sale system, boy, I'd sure like to have a cashier in that selection, or I'd like to have a server in there. And so you need operations buy-in, because they're the ones who are going to have to use it. They may say things you don't. Separating hardware, software, and services. Actually, I probably should have said software, hardware, then services. The reason for this is you don't want to be limited by hardware in what you select. So choose the best software in functionality, and you will find that even the major manufacturers who offer a complete solution with hardware usually will run on some other hardware as well, more generic. This is also helpful if you have a number of units and you want to go ahead and switch over. You can go ahead and keep the hardware in place because you can run multiple things. And then lastly, the services. We're not in a single place. Unless you buy everything from one vendor, you're going to need to look at the services, whether they're on-site services, help desk, support services, and things. There are service-only options that allow you to go to a single service provider. You will want to consider best of breed versus all-in-one. What that means is, if you're writing your requirements, there are people that will do labor scheduling better than anybody else, or payroll, because it's all they do. And there's nothing wrong with buying from a single vendor, especially if you're a smaller operator, because you only have one person to call. And there are many good packages. But in order to make that decision of what you're giving up, you need to compare it against somebody who only does labor scheduling. And somebody who does only labor scheduling may be at 100% or payroll at 100%, but somebody who offers it all in one, maybe they're at 96%. And at least you then know what you're giving up. So If you choose all-in-one solutions, you need to know what you're giving up. If you choose best of breed, you need to make sure they work with each other before you buy them, because you don't want to be in the integration business and you don't want to pay for custom integration, which means that you are married to custom solutions. I would focus on packaged applications. What is off the shelf? I have never found an operator, even some of the big ones, that really do need custom. Everybody thinks that they do. I will tell you one piece of advice. The reason why people think they need custom solutions is because they've been doing business the same way for years and years and years. So you want to eliminate spreadsheets, no spreadsheets, but you need to be flexible. Most of the data you want and care about to operate is available in most systems. The problem is it may not be presented in exactly the format you've been working off of. So there's a little flexibility needed here. And that's why people start to go custom, because I can't buy something already that does what I want. And so that's your opportunity to be a little flexible. And of course, you can always use a custom report writer or something on the side, packaged, of course, that will allow you to see it the way you used to. And then the last thing is this: none of us can really afford unlimited funds for technology. And so I always say, you know what? Take a look at the market leaders, small or big, by the way, in your segment. If it's pizza, you know who you want to talk to. You know, if it's burgers, you know who it is. And it can be regional, larger providers as well. See what technologies they are using, which will go ahead and limit what you look at, because they do have the funds to have the latest and greatest integration and interfaces and things that the customers want, that you want to be able to use, but you won't have to pay for it because they're paying for it. And so that's one last thing to take a look at. So with that, that I hope gives you some vision of the future here, what to expect. It gives you some practical ways of looking at technology. And I'm going to remind you one more time that the resources that are available through this partnership, because you invested in NYSRA, you get it if you want to get it. And you can use this as a resource to help yourself along. So I want to thank you for the invitation, and we can open this up, Sarah, if you have some questions.
Thank you so much for joining us, Rob. If you have questions, you can type them into the Q&A box now. Any questions out there? Questions on NYSRA, questions on the IFBTA, questions on anything that Rob spoke about regarding technology. Lots to consider. And I'm sure you're being inundated with things like that right now also. So now's a good time to talk to an expert. What is a good BYOD platform existing now?
So bring your own device actually means bring your own device. So it's really not a platform, but if you want to think of it this way, if I have my cell phone, and it doesn't really matter, I'm agnostic, whether you're on Apple, whether you're on Microsoft, whether you're on Android, whatever you choose, by the way, should run on all of them. I would advise against something that just only runs on one, and most will do that. So what you want to know is whether, if you're using handheld terminals for ordering, could it eventually be used on a device that you provide? Now, I do know that some of the major manufacturers are providing really great devices that aren't bring your own, and you might call that, whoever asked this question, a platform. The reason why you would consider those is because they're going to support them, and they're ruggedized for the environment if they get dropped, heat, and things like that. On the other hand, if you think of it yourself, if you are doing online ordering yourself, there's nothing to say that a server couldn't be using the same platform on their phone and doing online ordering. So bring your own device means the employee doing it. It also means the guest doing it.
Right. Anyone else out there? Okay. Well, you can always follow up by reaching out to info@nysra.org. And I can connect you with Rob and the IFBTA. There's some contact information on the up on the screen right now. Again, you can capture that QR code also. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure. We're looking forward to a very long partnership.
Absolutely.
And working and meeting the members in person, and certainly in March at the New York State show. I think that'll be a great opportunity to bring people together as well.
Absolutely. internationalrestaurantny.com for the show information for next year, 2022. All right. We look forward to speaking with you again in the future. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Great. Thank you.